slides, the average draw over the 20-year period for the conventional would be about $55 million a year over 9 years. Whereas in the short term, it would be about $26 million a year, but that would be stretched over 20 years. So for most districts that don't have your amount of assessed valuation, this just doesn't work. They just can't get enough funds to build a school or improve a school. But when you start getting to the size of your district, it is an option to consider. Now let me say one more thing. It doesn't have to be A or B. You don't have to have it as, oh, we're going to have just conventional bonds, and we're just going to have 5-year bonds. We've done a number of elections now where they're a combination. I say, okay, we have some long-term facility needs. We're going to fund those and use 25 or 20-year bonds, but on top of that, we're going to take a portion of that tax rate and we're going to use that for this short term because we want to fund technology with that, or we want to fund facility improvements that really shouldn't be repaid over a 25, 30-year period. So you can combine those two and get a blended tax rate. I'm going to pause there for any questions that there might be.
So with this, either you're indicating that we would only possibly choose the smaller amount to sell at this point in time and then go out for a new bond election in 2017 with a choice of A or B for the funding.
I think that's right. It wouldn't be 2017, but yes. I mean, remember what I said. You've got 3 pieces of the puzzle. You've got the economics, the politics, and the legal. Well, the economics and the legal, that's easy. When you get down to the politics, it's, do you need the money now, or can you wait a couple of years to get the remaining $77 million? If you can wait, then yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Your chart indicates a start date of 2017.
That would be for...
Why did you choose that?
Yeah, that would be for a new election. I chose that because I assumed that there'd be an election in 2016, which is a presidential race. And then you begin to get the funding in 2017. But you can make that any year you want. That's just the next available election date. I think it makes the most sense for a district like this, and I'll tell you why in just a second. But that's why I chose that. So there's sort of 2 pieces. There's the old Measure C, and then anything you do going forward. But I think you should look at them from the same perspective, which is, how do we get the amount of funding that we need in a way that is the least costly to taxpayers?
So, looking at the proposal or the idea of going in 2016, the bonds that we have already sold and that we would potentially sell now, those, the taxpayer would continue to pay the 90-cent+ rate until 2030, plus, if we went out for another, up to another $60, which would be $152 per 100,000, if it was approved?
Yes, that's correct. And remember that they're also paying, homeowners are paying another $60 on your mellow roofs.
67.
Is it 67? Sorry. And that goes away in 2025, something like that. So then, they would have that additional. And that is absolutely correct. These are Proposition 39 plus the mellow roofs. Proposition 39 is designed to be a certain tax rate per election, not an aggregate. You can make that less. 60 is your max. I'm not suggesting that it has to be that. I'm saying that's your max per election. And they do then stack on top of each other, as you saw the 2 that you have now, the 2002 election and the 2010 election. Okay. 2 quick slides just as we're talking, now that you're talking about 2016 or beyond. The first has to do with voter analysis and demographics of the district. And it's a big district, as you know, 127,000 registered voters. Almost 50% of your registered voters are Democrats. Now, frankly, in most districts, that you'd look at, you'd say, wow, 50% Democrats, you know, this is a pretty liberal district. I personally don't get that sense. I mean, I think this is, so I was saying earlier this afternoon, I'm dating myself, but the term Reagan Democrat kind of, you know, comes to me. I think this is a much more conservative district than it might appear on the slide. You also have almost half of the voters, registered voters, over the age of 55. And that is very unusual. And then if you look at the next slide, which I think is the more telling of the two, page 23, this is voter turnout. Now, you did a great, I mean, you can't argue with victory. You did a great job in the primary in 2010. But this shows turnout for this district based on the type of election. Presidential in dark blue, gubernatorial in red, and primaries in gray. And why that's important is because, to me, why that's important is because I think given some of the challenges that you would face in an election, additional taxes, for example, the fact that you do have this, was it a tax rate extension, or was it supposed to be $60? The fact that all the project list hasn't been addressed, you're gonna need turnout. You're gonna need high turnout in my mind if you were to decide to go forward. And that means looking at the 2016 ballot or the press of the 2020 ballot. Second choice would be 2018, which is a gubernatorial election. So that is the end of our presentation. I'm happy to take any other questions or go backwards and look at some of these slides again if you want, or if you wish.
I have a question on, let me go to the slide. On page 5, or slide 5. I was curious why the 2015 assessed valuation projection is predicted to be 9% when we're just in the first quarter of 2015.
That is the fiscal year, and those are actual numbers. Those are not projections. So that is the beginning of 15-16. That was what your assessed valuation was. That's where you are today. So that's not a prediction. That's the actual percentage increase for the most recent year.
14-15.
Sorry, 14-15.
So so that represents January 1st, 2014 to December 31st, 2000.
I believe it's July 1st, 2014.
The county, when they do the assessed value and the tax rates, they do it from July 1, 14 to June 30, 2015. So that's this, so the years are the tail end of that fiscal year, the 14-15 fiscal year.
So it's actually 3 quarters. We're in the 3rd quarter of the fiscal year for that representation.
Correct, but they set it at one point in time.
Right.
It doesn't change. That number is not going to change
Yeah,
appreciably.
the taxes.
That's right.
All right.
I understand it now.
Other questions?
So you are predicting that there will be an increase in the assessed valuation. What is your position on where interest rates will be in the future, and where will construction costs be in the future as well? Because typically when assessed valuation goes up, construction costs seem to go up as well.
You know, most people, when they're asked, in my business, when they're asked that question, they quickly try to take a pass and say, you know, I don't want to talk about it. I will tell you that even within my firm, I don't think we have any agreement on this question. And I welcome Mark to stand up and tell me I'm wrong. Personally, I don't think rates are gonna be going up for a while.